Okay, so I'm gonna solve this again. Let me see if you guys can see this pencil. Nope. And again, I'm started with doing some gestures somewhere else. I'm actually gonna do them right on this little paper here, just to kind of get you guys thinking about it. I'm gonna set it to the side so I'm less likely to look too much at it. And I'm looking at the shadow and coming into this whole object. So I'm not really like spending a lot, so much time. I'm kind of getting a feel for this entire situation. I'm going all over it. And the more I look at this sphere, the more I see that there's so much going on here, besides just what I maybe thought before I started today. Obviously, I've also drew this just the other day. So, okay, so I'm going to be using a 2B, but you guys should be using something lighter for this part, not for the gestures. 2B is fine for the gestures. But I just mean because I have to do it that dark, my underdrawing, because I can't get anything else to show up on this camera. I even bought like a big ass ring light. Didn't even matter. It's fine. Okay. So, I really wish I had one of my regular pencils actually right now. I'm just gonna go kind of crazy and just use this ebony. It's so bright right here. Okay, so this time, the other day I did, I showed you guys how I was doing it, thinking about this as like kind of a trapezoid. So today I'm going to think about this more as like squares to kind of show you what that looks like. So I'm just sizing up my sphere here. We're going to start with the sphere today. And I want to make, I've decided I want to make this line here, this corner, be right at that thirds mark. The thirds are rule of thirds, visually interesting. Any place that you kind of have your picture plane broken down into thirds, if you have something visually interesting happening there, is good. You would normally make your picture plane into even thirds, like all the directions. Oh, I'm sorry, both horizontal and vertical. But I sometimes, especially when I'm doing something this small, I just pay attention, to my blocking by like thinking, okay, there's like the third, there's the third. That just gives me like an eyeball idea. And I'm just, I am gonna put a marker right. So when I look at this when I look at this sphere, and I'm thinking about the relationship of the sphere to its shadow and the sphere to itself. If I take this and I hold this part at the top of the sphere and I come down as far as I can go and I look, now I want to know where does this really come into play? That's about halfway. So I'm using two devices to get a sense of like, yeah, so it's pretty much halfway. So if I have my mark here for a halfway cut across line here, then I can sort of plan on sticking the this shadow sphere corner right here, right there. And so then that's the outside of my sphere. So I'm going to kind of look here. If this is like halfway, then this is basically where I'm building my image from. I've decided that this is my starting point, my horizon line, but it's not really a horizon line. It's just like my image where I'm building from. So I'm building from the center here. And remember, this line here is just a guide for the picture plane. This is not me blocking in the image. I can make this sphere any size I want now. I've started my starting point. I know kind of how I'm going to dive into this form. So I could decide I want the sphere to be this wide or this wide or this wide. And let's just get real weird. Let's just go real big. Let's see how we feel about that. So whatever this distance is, because this is a sphere, it would have to be the same this way, right? So, okay, so my sphere would come from here outside my picture plane to there inside my picture plane. How do I feel about that? I feel kind of good about it, actually. I'm gonna get a couple runs here before I get in and work on building my circle. I think I have this a little bit off. We'll see. Yeah, that's okay. I think my mind was like automatically just stopping at that picture plane up there, but okay, well, it's gonna even itself out later. So this is actually, the picture plane ends right here. So now my sphere comes right off the picture plane up there at the top. Okay, now I'm gonna block in my shadow, and I'm just gonna kind of look here. I'm measuring, taking a look, see what that angle is there, bring it here, and just kind of mimic it. Okay, and that helps me know that this edge of this shadow comes like that. And the shadow comes way down, right? Like, so if this is my middle point, the shadow comes a lot further down. Oh yeah, that's what I did. I counted the middle point as the I counted the middle point in this image as the middle point here, which meant that this was also part of the middle point, but it's fine. We're going to roll with it. I'm now officially doing an experiment in blocking and composition. So there we go. And so I've kind of got my shadows, and if I want to check some stuff, I just come here and see, okay, how does this line up there? Is that about the same? It is. It's harder to see from your angle, but it is about the same. You know, how are these things relating to each other? Pretty good. I think this actually comes up a little bit. All right, and so now I'm going to think about, I've got my shapes, and I'm going to sort of think about the shadow and look at the shadow here. It's got this line that comes, where is that line actually? So right now I'm looking at this value scale, this darker value scale here, comes kind of swooping in, and it seems to actually sort of trail off right there. It's almost like a slice out of a pie or something. There we go. Okay. And so I have this down there for myself. So I know that this is my darkest darks, right? And I know that this is my brightest brights. And I also know that's my darkest dark on the object. And I also know that here, you guys can't see it, but in this picture, it's right here. That is my darkest dark on there. So I am going to actually just straight up use a permanent marker on this because it gets a little bit difficult for you guys to see on here. So I'm just going to kind of do some straight lines in my shadow and pull them off here, getting into my darkest darks area. And I'm really going to exaggerate the length of this shadow by doing these straight lines like this. If I had a bunch of short ones, it would not accentuate the length of the shadow. Okay, and I'm kind of letting my ends sort of trail off. Then a finished drawing, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. I am going to do a little extra lines here. Hate that, but that's what I did. Okay, and so what do we have here? I did basically sloppy cross hatching on the other ones. So now I'm going to stick with some curving lines. And I'm going to try not to make it quite as messy. And I'm actually going to get real light on my lines. And I'm going to try and describe this sphere almost more in my arc. This is a volumetric line. I'm coming around here. I'm following sort of the surface of the object with my line. If you think about volumetric line, a common understanding of it in like how we think of it now would be like the 3D rendering sort of grid kind of thing. A volumetric line shows you the volume with lines that move around an object. Okay, and I think I've got just a couple more here. And I'm gonna make this dark, but since this is like the background, I don't want it to get confused. I'm sort of changing up my line here, you know, getting a little more aggressive, getting a little fatter. There you go. And so that's actually, that would like sufficiently complete the assignment, you know. I went outside of my picture plane, not really sure how I feel about this composition, but I am glad that I sort of attempted it and tried to like get the object bigger. So this next time I'm going to solve this again. Give me 1 second. And this time I'm going to actually do just the negative space first. I'm still going to come into the geometry of my image and all that. I'm actually going to change my picture plane, because even though that was fine for me to go out of that one, I kind of like not having it. So we're going with like a long boy on this one. Sorry, it's my paintbrush because I'm also painting. I move back and forth between different different projects. So yeah, so this one, going to start solving it a little bit. Let's see, how did we do before? Okay, so all right, so I've thought about this shape in like a trapezoid, and trapezoid's really a type of triangle. So I'm actually going to see if I can solve this drawing problem with some guiding composition lines. So I'm gonna kind of draw what I think is a triangle that would sort of fit this which is a very wide triangle. And we'll see how this goes. I'm just trying to think about this in different terms every time to hopefully get me kind of engaging with it differently. So let's see. It's almost a 90-degree angle, actually. With its apex sort of there. And I'm just blocking some stuff in. There we go. So what I have here basically is this line. I have it set up like, let's see. So if I were to have, oops, this is basically what I'm doing. Ooh, that's beyond 90, which I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't done that. And this is definitely not beyond 90, so I need that to come up like this. Wow. We're doing it. We're so doing it. I want you guys to know this is what it is. Solving drawing problems is this back and forth. And this is also why it's really important to do thumbnails before you do a big project, because you want to have these solutions figured out ahead of time. So now we have that angle. So I know that basically because I'm doing this, right? I know that like here, where my left thumb is probably a good place for me to put my point for my outside of my sphere to see like where that is relationally. So I'm just gonna kind of guess right now at the second. There's my point for my sphere. And so if I've got this going here, this would kind of be, so I'm just gonna sort of eyeball this, and this is way wide, right? Like I'm just putting that there so I have the angle locked down for myself. You guys can barely see it anyways. But I know that that's not proportional relationship. I just don't want to get there yet. Yeah. Okay, so looking here, going from there, going to here and looking and seeing this angle. So I'm just going to draw a line here. This is coming through the center of my sphere and part of the shadow, and I'm trying to keep that angle going strong. Geometry skills a little rough today. It's okay, it's because I'm thinking about positive and negative space, because I'm also working on our lecture for that, which will be pretty short. We're gonna have to learn by doing on that one too. So yeah, so then I know that like my outside edge of the sphere is gonna fall along on this line, because this is the center, right? So I'm gonna pick that and then know that like, okay, whatever this is, I am also that same dimension this way, right? So if I, for my own self, I'm just gonna draw a line here so I know, and this comes about midway. Now I could get so specific that I'm actually measuring it and not just eyeballing it, but this is, you know, this is how we're doing it right now. And I am going to work on teaching you guys site size. It's hard because I don't know how to set it up, but I'm looking into things. So I'm going to look at here and see, are those the right? No, those aren't even close. I should be able to make a circle touching them all. Oh, it was, the first one was right actually. I just was confused because of the distortion I was seeing from my expectation, because I'm doing this as like a cross, like an X instead of a regular square. So I'm building it up from that center diagonal. And my point in showing you this is not because I think you should always do it this way, but because I want you to see that I can solve this problem in a bunch of different ways. And I want you to see that because that means you can solve these problems in a bunch of different ways. Again, I'm taking a peek. Where's that? When I'm doing this, I'm just getting an idea of like, what exactly am I looking at? And I'm asking myself questions. Like, is that halfway? Yeah, I think it is. And I realized that I knew that from before, but I asked myself brand new anyways, because I could have come up with a new solution. I could have written it wrong. I could have been wrong when I first saw it. You know, I could have drawn it wrong. There's all these different things that could really be playing a role. And I want to make sure I'm engaging with my object really distinctly and directly every time. So I'm going to use this pen right here. It's a brush pen. It's a the Micron brush. And I'm going to, these are so much fun because they're so painterly. I'm just going to do some little, you know, brush strokes at it. You can tell I like to be a painter. I want to use markers like a paintbrush. And I can still describe this value with line, even with a brush marker, even with a brush. And when it comes to modeling, and we get into shading, you guys are going to see how building up these layers of lines on top of each other lend themselves well to helping you know how to use your tools around those subtle shadow moments here. I've got my, again, I know I've already done this a bunch of times, and yeah, I'm doing it again. And this time I'm taking a look in a different way. I want to see what's the angle of this shadow. So this shadow is like this. And all the times I've drawn this sphere so far, I never just did that. I never just drew a line at the center of that shadow. And now I'm going to follow the curve, and I'm actually holding the pencil here so I can see how the curve lines up with the straight line of the pencil. And that helps me understand how this curve lines up with the straight line that's right here. So I'm going to pull this here so you guys can see. So this is the core shadow, the darkest dark on that sphere. Okay, I've got that in, and now I'm just gonna use the brush like an actual paintbrush, because that's how I'm feeling right now. It's overcast outside and I just want to feel like I'm painting. So I would say I'm less successful at getting the shadow subtleties with this brush than I am with the other markers and even pencil. But that's okay. Part of that's because it's so wide and it's a learning process. And then what I would do is just come through here. And I don't really want to cover up that line so much because I want you guys to be able to see it. But, you know, just kind of put in a little background there. And maybe I want to come in and put a little background here. I've been playing over here. I made these little lines. I feel like my angle on this shadow lined up pretty okay. And I've decided to make a certain sense of balance in the image by putting something interesting in the distorted background over here. What is it? We don't know. We don't know. So that's another way to solve it with the with line for describing value.